Okay, so we've all been there, done that. We have sabotaged our lives or lost people we love over us not being able to stop ourselves. So here's some tips on how to tame your tongue in all situations. So here's the thing. There is absolutely no 100% easy way to change our patterns of triggers. So the best tip for taming your tongue is really easy, consciously to state, consciously to understand, but when we're triggered, we go unconscious into patterns, reactive patterns. So the goal is to get ourselves responding instead of reacting in our old usual patterns when we are emotionally charged. Consciously, that's easy. I'm going to do it. Then we get triggered again and go unconscious. So, how do we stay woke? How do we stay conscious when we're emotionally triggered and put the brakes on our usual outbursts, reactions, and upheaval, sabotage type stuff? So, let me make an example. The childhood I had, I was kind of a social outcast. I lived in a kind of a bougier suburb, yeah, and I came from a poverty-stricken family, very poverty, and so I was consistently disliked by my peers. And so, with the reactive patterning to that, I learned to, shut down. And then as I got older, I learned to kind of like fight for my injustices in certain ways. And so, how that followed me as a reactive pattern in adulthood is when my daughter, a lot of us have had kids, got to her teen years, and she started to do some of those, mean girl patterns. She was exhibiting the traits that triggered me in my childhood, to feel rejected by society. And so, what was starting to happen, and from a conscious aware place that I'm at now, I was not even able to identify what I was doing. And this is how it relates to taming your tongue, because I was impressing into my daughter that she was a mean girl. And that was because of her usual teenage patterning of eye rolls and things of that nature. I would feel like she didn't like me. I was disgusting to her, like a lot of those childhood patterns. And so I called those people mean girls, right? So what would happen is she would do this to me or one of her siblings, and I would immediately get triggered super bad. And it was detectable to me that it was over the top, over the behavior and the reaction. So it was coming from somewhere else. Never, one of my coined phrases is we're never triggered for the reason we think we are. So it didn't have anything to do with my daughter. It had to do with my own suffering. And so what I found out though is she confronted me about it and was like, it really hurts me that you keep calling me a mean girl. You keep every little thing I do now, you get upset and you call me this. And that's when the light bulb went off. I am ruining the relationship with my daughter. And so, what was the reaction? What was it stemming from? And how could I stop? And so I brought this story to you so you can understand it doesn't matter what the story is, the tip is always going to be the same. It is coming from an emotional reaction that most of the time we have patterning that we've repeated for years, beliefs that we spew. And so the only logical thing is to recognize when you're emotionally triggered and pause and wait for it to pass. It's the only tip. It'll work in every situation. But that is, like I said in the beginning, the easiest conscious thing to understand. But when we're triggered, it is incredibly hard to implement. But this right here, just this one tip, is life changing. Seriously. You will save yourself from a lot of sabotage in your relationships. You will save yourself from patterns with people that don't need to exist anymore in the healthy environment we want to create. And so if we can just get this one time, we'll get that light bulb like, oh my God, this is it. This is it right here. This is life changing. So going back to the example with my daughter, so now what I do when she does that, and right after that, it happened at Target. So at Target, where, in the makeup aisle, the new Ulta in Target, 9 out of 10, by the way. Don't have as much things as I'd like, but good enough. Anyway, she was trying on some, things with the testers, and she had something on her face. So I went to go wipe it, and she pulled back from me and walked away with that look. I immediately caught myself saying, see, that's what I'm talking about. You're fucking rude. You are a mean girl. I never cuss at my kids, by the way, but what I chose to do is I was like, here it is. Here it is. Here it is right now. I need to create a pause. So what I did is I noticed that I was extremely triggered. So I just turned and walked away instead of spewing my usual stuff. Now, granted, in the end, that she was upset that I walked away. She's like, you take everything so personal. And it's like, remember, we don't even know the reasons we're triggered. They're deeper. They're coming from somewhere that isn't even relative to this. But I said to her, I'm sorry, but that is what I needed to do so I could stop that pattern. I needed to create the pause. And guess what? Before we even left Target, we were already laughing and having a good time. But then we came home and she reflected on that part. So at the end of the day, it's life-changing, because not only are you not sabotaging by taming your tongue. The only way to tame your tongue, by the way, is to pause when you're emotionally charged and distance yourself till you can cool off, which we all know. But I want us to understand the bigger picture of this. We are changing our emotional reactive patterns and learning to self-soothe and respond in a healthy way. Because then when my daughter reflected on it, I told her, hey, look, this is coming from my past. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm sorry I tapped out. It has nothing to do with you. And she got it. And that's what I'm talking about. Because we didn't go down a bad, ugly path we couldn't come back from. We were able to reflect and respond. And we're changing our patterns. Because those light bulbs keep going off. And it's like, ooh, next time there is a reward. There's a love, there's a reaction after it that is not causing guilt, shame, disconnection, all of the separation. So this is the key, y'all. So again, I'm sure all of this is relative to millions of ways you've heard this before, just chill, just go with the flow, don't let the world take you out your character, all of those things. But this is the thing that's different. I want you to understand is every time, so our emotional reactions, we get the trigger, and then depending on how many times we repeated that, it has momentum. And so that momentum, if we've never been able to stop and pause and create a new response instead of the reaction, is going to be dependent on how fast that momentum is, or how much we have to overcome. So I want you to keep in mind that every time you pause, you're breaking that speeding freight train that you can't stop. So it's important and crucial not to give up, not to beat yourself up if you fail once, but you did it once, because the more that you change your reactive response and you start going inside and self-soothing, the more you slow that retrain down, that momentum, that reactionary pattern. And so the way that you do it is just try it like I did in Target. Oh, here it is. I'll freaking kick her ass. It was my childhood stuff. I don't want to kick my kid's ass. But we're never triggered by the reason we think we are. So I hope that really helps, because at the end of the day, this is key for everything. Because we have so many emotional reactive triggers and responses, especially as we get to our middle age, that there's a lot of people that end up alone because they're just so heavily triggered by the environment, and the momentum is so strong. So start. With that being said, my kids are being loud, but I'm not triggered. So I hope this video helped. If it does, like, share, subscribe, and also comment what is your main reactive trigger, and I'll respond and I'll let you know, hey, yo, this is what worked for me, or, you know, or let me know when you overcome one. If there's something that this video sparked in you and you find yourself applying it in the day, let me know. Help others. Let's get this going in the comment section. All right, take care.